All right, everybody, we are here at the Out East Summit in the North Fork of Long Island with the conference organizer himself, the CEO and founder of the TIE, Mr. Josh Frank. Thank you for joining me, but thank you for having me at your summit.
Thanks for having me on, and it's great to be together, have you here. I mean, we've been friends
since 2019.
Yeah, I think we met at an eToro rooftop party
in Los Angeles,
some random conference.
I have no idea even what conference that was, but I vividly remember that and thinking, wow, this is like one of the smartest guys I've ever met, if not the smartest guy in crypto. Want to figure out a way.
You can tell he had drank a lot that night. That's the takeaway that he had.
No, dude, I mean, you obviously built a great data company with the TIE. I remember when it was just you and Ben, and now it's, how many people work for you now?
Across employees and contractors, just over 100.
Yeah, it's insane. It's so, love to see the growth, and proud to have been there since the start. And now we've got this great conference with the likes of Fidelity here, Morgan Stanley, Invesco, Galaxy. I mean, Coinbase. Pretty much every single big name on Wall Street and on Crypto Street, as you will, is here, and they're all here because of you and the relationships you've built. And so before we dive into the TIE, all the acquisitions you've recently had, the growth, the products, you guys come out with a new product every week, it feels like, and these engineers, I think you're overworking these guys because it's incredible to see just the rate of production from your firm. But I want to start with the summit because this is, such a great summit. As we've said, great guests. What was the thought behind coming out east, coming to the North Fork, and inviting all these guests?
Yeah, I mean, the backdrop broadly is that crypto conferences can be pretty useless. When you go to a big crypto conference and there's thousands of people walking the floor, there's thousands of people, and they're random and they're unrelated to you. There could be service providers. It could be, 100 salespeople from the same, you
got a booth after booth after booth.
And it's not intimate. And even if you find the people that you want to talk to, you pass by them in the hall for 1 minute. You don't get to sit down with them. And I've really found that the best events are events that bring together good people for a number of days and just give them an opportunity to connect and build relationships. And so with Out East, the whole idea was basically, how can we bring people to a place where you can't go anywhere? Yeah. There's nowhere to go. You can't go. There's no coffee shop.
You could run into the vineyard that way, the farm that way.
Yeah.
That's about as far as you can go.
If you go far enough, you go berry picking with somebody else. But, there's not much that you can do. And so, conceptually, the whole idea was create an amazing environment where people can spend time together and they can connect. And so we chose the North Fork partially because I'm biased. I was married 5 minutes away from here.
It was a great wedding. It was a great wedding.
It was a great wedding. It was great having you there.
Loved it.
So I got married, very close by, and it's an amazing area, and also it's very close to New York, right? And so we wanted to do something that was accessible as well. So if you're in the city, you can drive out here in an hour and a half. And then when you're here, we curate all these incredible experiences, right? We have a lobster food truck, a pizza food truck. We have every attendee gets to make their own bottle of wine. They get to do wine tasting.
Yeah, we're doing wine tasting later, me and TiVo.
Yeah. So we wanted to create this amazing experience, and we started the event with, you could do a wine tour, you could go golfing, and you make a relationship, you meet somebody, and over the course of 2 or 3 days, you're able to do business together and grow it. And I think the thing that our attendees appreciate and why we can bring senior executives here is because we don't just allow random BD and salespeople and everyone.
Yeah. It's not a pitch fest.
It's not a pitch fest. There's no vaporware, right? It's really quality. And it's also, obviously there's an agenda, there's speaking, but there's no agenda in that. You're here to do whatever you want. If you want to talk tokenization, if you want to talk crypto, if you want to talk, whatever it is that you want to investing, you have that opportunity to do that. And you have this low-key incredible environment. If you want to go pull somebody over there, it's just a gigantic space to do that.
I gotta backtrack to the golf night because I saw that on the agenda and I was like, I'm a high handicapper, right? I'm like a 30 plus, like
we've golfed together. We've done this together.
Yeah, you're like, I've seen you.
You've seen me too.
Yeah.
Each other.
So would I be welcome next year at the Out East Summit, or are these golfers just like, absolute sticks?
So
what was the vibe?
First of all, I also didn't participate. I got to work on the game, and next year,
I don't want to embarrass myself.
No,
I don't want to do your
next
show.
year we'll play together.
Good.
And maybe a couple mulligans. We'll make the scorecard.
We got to make it happen.
Yeah. But no, we had a couple people that it was their first time golfing. It was a scramble, so credit teams.
Good.
And we actually had a few amateur golfers that participated and didn't come in first place, which is so embarrassing.
Who came in first?
I don't know. It was a group of 4. I'm not sure who was in it, but there were a couple sticks. They shot 6 under.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
What was the course you guys played?
I didn't play. It was somewhere 10 minutes away from
Okay, so up here in Long Island.
Yeah.
No, it's incredible. Look, so the summit's been great content. How is it that you built this? I mean, I think truly, like, not to like honk your horn or whatever, but I think you are top 5 most networked people in crypto in terms of, you know, who you've built, who you have access to. Is that just by the nature of your business? You're providing data to everybody, or was there something special that you did to build this network?
I don't know. I mean, I've been doing it for so long. It's just a matter of, like, we met on a rooftop in LA during a random conference, right? And, you know,
maybe you're just approachable.
No, I mean, look, when you first get started, you kind of just got to put yourself out there. I mean, I started the company, I knew no one, you know, I had nothing going on. And so it's just a matter of meeting people through people. And yeah, I mean, through the terminal and the institutional business, you know, made hundreds of different, you know, connections to customers and prospective customers. And it, you know, 9 years later, you end up meeting a lot of people.
Yeah.
And being in New York, you know, we also used to host weekly happy hours in the city, and a lot of people come in and do things. And so it's the culmination of knowing people for a very long time and doing something for a very long time.
And I think it's that rule, like, I don't know what the rule is, but like, you provide value. You very rarely ask for people to give you value. You're a giver, not a taker. And I think that's one thing that, like, why people are attracted to, like, coming to your conferences and working with you, because you're literally hustling around every single different food truck, every single different thing. You know, hey, how are you enjoying the conference? Who do you want to meet? And everybody who I'm asking, they're like, yeah, like Josh is asking me, you know, making all these introductions. So you do the legwork. But anyhow, let's dive into the tie. Let's dive into, you know, what you guys are building on, what you guys are working on. Start us at a high level before we zoom in. For folks who are, you know, watching, whether they're a retail trader, whether they're an institution, what does the tie do?
Yeah, well, you know, it depends on when you ask the question.
Sure.
So the answer is actually going to change. We have a public announcement in a week or two, which will slightly change.
Okay.
Change that. But broadly speaking,
it's a cliffhanger. Wow.
It's a cliffhanger. It's a regulatory related reason why I can't discuss.
I'm happy with that. Yeah,
so
right.
But what we do broadly is we really help institutions interact with digital assets, and that's in a number of ways. So we started as a data company, and so we built the Tie terminal and APIs, which for anyone listening, think of like a Bloomberg or FactSet type platform for crypto, which service hundreds of hedge funds, asset managers, VCs, bank, market makers, OTC desks. So that's kind of where we started. But over the years, we really expanded that. So the first thing we expanded that with was events. And so we realized a few years ago, we knew all the institutions because of our business. We also knew a lot of the protocols. We realized the protocols and the institutions didn't really have great places to connect. So in traditional capital markets, investment banks put on sell-side research conferences. So, you know, think, you know, tier 1 bulge bracket bank will put on a conference. They'll bring the CEOs of all the public and private fintech companies, say with private equity firms, asset managers, hedge funds, the like. In crypto, that didn't really exist. So a few years ago, we started putting on our first events focused on actually helping protocols connect with institutions. That's really the genesis.
Yeah.
Our first event was called The Bridge because we wanted to bridge protocols and institutions together. So that's how we got started. As we built that out more, we realized that there was something that both of our customers had in common, is that they had a lot of tokens. And so we acquired at the end of last year, they had a lot of tokens. And they didn't necessarily want us to pay us cash, but they had a lot of tokens that they weren't really, you know, using for much. And so at the end of last year, we acquired a business called Stakin, which is a $2 billion asset under delegation staking business. And the idea was we could go to our clients, we could say, look, you want to be part of, you know, our events, you want access to our data, you want access to our information, delegate your stake to us. We'll charge you the same rate as any other staking provider. It's the same terms, everything, but you get additional value because ultimately, you know, staking providers are giving you the same rate, the same infra.
There's no differentiation.
There's no differentiation.
100% uptime, like all.
Yeah, it's all the same shit, right? And so you can get more by delegating to us, and so that's kind of how we got started. We also just announced that we acquired a business called StakingRewards.com, which is the top staking and yield data platform in the space.
Back in the day, I mean, I've made walkthroughs of StakingRewards.com for our community.
Yeah.
You know, like how to use this platform, how to find them. And so it's cool to watch this full circle because I'm going to have to make a new website or a new video about the new website and stuff.
Well, it's the same website. It just says buy the tie. It looks broadly the same. But we just acquired that business for a few reasons. The first is, you know, it allows our customers to get access to more data, more information, which we can bring into the terminal. But we can also bring to Staking Rewards and for, you know, all your users, more data from the terminal. So we'll be able to bring more insights, more analytics, and make that platform even more powerful. But what's really exciting to me, and I think was underappreciated by the Staking Rewards team, and they continue to work with us, and, you know, and they do appreciate it, but is there's 1 million people that visit the website every single year. Why do they visit? Because they care about yield. And to me, you could turn that into a lot, right? And so we do a lot of work with protocols, and we can help get them more exposure and present yield opportunities. And for us, it's moving more than just staking. It's into DeFi yield and RWA yield and making it more of a yield focused platform. And we also just acquired a platform called Liquidity Land, which is a platform that helps DeFi projects raise TVL. And they've helped projects raise collectively over 100 million in TVL. And what's really cool as a user, you can come on the platform and you'll get additional yield versus going anywhere else.
Oh, wow.
So there's additional incentives. So you go and you deposit on our platform, maybe you'll get 5% yield going directly to a lending protocol, but through us, you get 5.1%. And it's basically incentives that the DeFi protocols are willing to give to bootstrap growth on their network. And so for the DeFi protocols that we're working with, we now are able to give them exposure to institutions. We'll be able to bring exclusive deals onto the terminal. We'll also be able to syndicate the deals onto stakingrewards.com to the million users.
Synergy, baby.
And so all of these things really work together, but it's all about helping protocols get exposure to institutions, and then helping institutions understand digital assets, get exposure to digital assets, get information about digital assets. But really, it's at the intersection of institutions, digital assets, and protocols.
Yeah, I love it. Walk us through, like, how do these deals come together? Are you, in a boardroom and people are pitching you ideas? Are you coming up with the ideas? Are you going out and calling people and saying, are you for sale? Like, walk us through, from the CEO perspective, how an acquisition actually gets done.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's no Shark Tank. I'm not sitting over there later today and
pitch me,
if anybody does want to come pitch me, please do reach out. You have to hear what you have. And we continue to be active in the space. I think maybe we want to break from acquiring business in 3 and 6 months. So I think maybe a little pause. But we are active and the right opportunities will present themselves. We have investment bankers often come and send us decks and present us opportunities. There's spaces that we knew we wanted to acquire a staking business. So we looked at multiple staking businesses and actually wasn't even familiar with the staking brand before. And we got approached by a bank with that opportunity. So it's a mix. Sometimes founders come directly to me. It's also, talking to the Liquidity Land deal. Actually, they had referred us customers for some of our other products. And the salesperson on my team who works with them said, hey, these guys are looking for an exit. You want to chat with them? And, it went from that to being part of the tie in probably like 100 days or something.
Wow.
So it was pretty quick.
Yeah, crypto moves fast.
So so pretty quick. But yeah, I mean, we're open for business. So,
love it.
Yeah.
In terms of, the programming that you guys have put on, there's been so many good good stories being told from the regulatory perspective, the liquid active, hedge fund perspective, the Wall Street tokenization perspective. I've seen stuff on prediction markets, on perpetuals. Where in your mind is the most, there was some talks on AI in crypto. Where in your mind is the most exciting for the next, call it 6 to 12 months of where crypto's going?
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, it's actually not been as much of a discussion. It's been partially discussion, but it's what we're really excited about, which is this concept of converting tokens into equity.
Converting tokens
into equity.
Whoa. I've heard converting equity into tokens.
So converting tokens into equity. So
elaborate.
I think, yeah. So I there's a few reasons why I think that this is really meaningful and it matters. So the first thing is when you're a founder of a company, right? You own part of Crypto 101, right? You own a decent chunk. I don't know how much you own, but let's say you own 10%, 15%, 20%, 30%. Founders of protocols, as a lot of you guys have seen token distribution charts, 10%, 15% goes to the team. The founder might have 2% or 3%.
Yeah, and he's the one who's working day and night,
right? And so
reputational risk.
Right, and so, when the token's at $10 billion in market cap, fantastic. You're worth $300 million. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
When the token's sitting at 50 million market cap, they have $100,000 worth of the thing. And ultimately, with AI and all the opportunities that, that are available, you might get a better signing bonus than that going somewhere else or whatever. It's just the opportunity cost of leaving is no longer very high. So that's the first issue. The second, and then you can't issue yourself more shares because there's that set pool, right?
Right.
And with an equity business, like if you guys wanted to hire more employees or we wanted to hire more employees, we could expand our employee stock option pool and basically dilute everyone to create more shares for employees.
Right.
With a token, you can't do that. The second thing is you can't raise more money. So you go out, you launch a token, you've raised money before, maybe you've raised $30 million to launch your token. Your token's now sitting at $100 million in market cap, and the foundation only has 5% of the tokens left.
Yeah.
So the most you can do, you can't raise again. So you have $5 million of the token. Let's say you need $10 million in capital. You can't raise $10 million. You have no mechanism for doing that. With an equity business, you could dilute yourself to zero. I mean, you could continue to raise as much as you wanted to. And so when you went out and you raised originally, maybe you raised for 5 years of runway and you thought the token would exist and would be at a high value. You could sell the token to continue your runway. Now you can't do that.
Yeah.
The other problem is you have this buyback incentive. And so everyone is asking for buybacks. If you're a big product like a Hyperliquid and you're very profitable, you can do buybacks and
Right.
you should do buybacks. But if you're a smaller early stage DeFi protocol that has 10 million in revenue and maybe 1 million in profit, you shouldn't be buying back your token holders. Like investors,
You want to reinvest in the growth.
yeah, exactly. Like, if you guys just took all your profit and dividended out and didn't launch new products and new podcast series and all of that, like you would not be where you are today. And there's this perverse incentive with tokens to buy back. And by the way, you're buying back and token price isn't even going up.
Right.
And so there's all sorts of different...
Sometimes.
But like a lot of the times it's not. And so there's all these perverse incentives that really limit the growth of companies, force them to operate in ways that they wouldn't normally operate in.
Right.
And so I'm very excited about the concept of basically killing the token, converting to equity. And then basically what that allows you to do is you convert like the top 5 or top 10 holders directly to the cap table, maybe holder 10 to 100 in SPV, like in a vehicle that you basically just sits one vehicle on the cap table with the token holders. And then everyone else gets bought out at a premium to what they're holding it at. So let's say the token's $1, maybe you get the opportunity to sell your tokens at $1.05. And so that way you're not screwing the average investor.
Right.
I think ultimately actually what it will do is it will cause token prices to go up, foreseeing that more of these opportunities will happen.
Yeah.
So I think it's actually will be a boon for crypto. And what I'm ultimately very excited about, and then what you do is you basically bring over the top 5 holders directly on the cap table. They then basically delegate a pool of capital, which will be used to buy out the others. They say we will increase our exposure by $10 million or whatever it is. And then basically you then issue a new employee stock option pool. So everyone gets common stock. You issue a new employee stock option pool on top of that. And basically dilute everyone so founders can get a little bit more shares, but so can the employees. And then you raise a new round of preferred stock and dilute everyone on top of that so you can continue to grow. But ultimately where I think it's really exciting and really interesting is when on top of that, you tokenize the equity and allow the everyday investor to get exposure to the tokenized equity, because equity is just a better way to get exposure to these projects.
Yeah.
I just think it's more efficient and it's better for it to be an equity than to be a token.
Yeah.
And with tokens, you just don't have any rights.
Right.
Like ultimately you can get rug pulled. If you're an equity holder, you have rights, you have investor protections, right? I think it's ultimately better. And I don't think it makes sense it doesn't make sense for an L1 that has a gas token.
Right.
But I think it makes sense for a lot of DeFi projects and RWA projects that have real revenue, AI projects as well. And I think ultimately, obviously there's regulatory restrictions on this, but I think allowing people to go from being holders of tokenized crypto to tokenized equity is ultimately better. And I don't think that kills any of the ethos of crypto. It's still about giving exposure to the masses and letting everyone participate, but it's in a form that's better and has better protections for you as an individual.
It's fascinating. We were just talking, 750 interviews and nobody's ever said that one. So that's a new take. And it's something that I'm personally going to want to dive in on more. What's stopping the market from moving that direction? Because again, this is an out of consensus view. Is it, the entrenched interests of, these large companies like, or the Ethereum Foundation?
It's just very difficult.
Yeah, it sounds very difficult.
It requires a lot of thought. Stay tuned for an announcement coming from us in a couple of weeks.
Interesting. Yeah, I know like Coinbase acquires what do they call it? An acqui-hire, where they for Axelar, not to put them on the spot.
Yeah, so the difference between that and this is we're not trying to screw anybody.
Yeah.
So this is how can we thoughtfully bring a token community into equity holders, and at the very least, make sure that the token holders are getting more than what their token's worth today. So like I want to structure, I want to, talk to people about structuring these deals in ways that don't screw the community.
Yeah.
The whole goal is you could do this and kill the token and it doesn't matter. It's not about killing the token. It's about doing right by the investors, because ultimately, even if you don't have a fiduciary duty to do that, I think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And so it's complicated. There's a lot of legal complications.
Sure.
How do you structure the deal? Where do you structure the deal? How do you convert people over? What do you do with the token? The token is property, so you can't kill the token. You don't actually kill it. You send it to a burn address. The token has to continue to exist in parallel, but it's a meme coin effectively. It's not worth anything. So there's a lot of considerations, both from a capital markets perspective on how you do it, as well as from a regulatory perspective on how you do it.
I love it. Well, that's the crescendo to end it on. I don't think we could get any better than that. So, Josh, thank you so much for coming on the show. Ab, thank you for having me. Everybody, we're at the Out East Summit, sponsored and brought to you by Josh Frank from the Tie. Stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of great guests coming to you live from the Out East Summit.